If you are an immigrant in the US and you are wondering that whether you want to retire in the US or retire in India, for a lot of us, it is not really clear because we don't know how the immigration status will come out, or let's say whether your long-term plans will change based on where your children are finally settling down, where you want to finally settle down, and the relative costs of retirement in the two locations are very, very different. A lot of time when I work as a financial coach for new immigrants, I often come across this question that the client is not yet sure about where to retire, and so arranging their finances either in India or in US becomes a very tricky situation about making any kind of long-term decisions, like do they bring all their money over to the US and plan for a retirement in the US, but what if their immigration situation does not support it a few years down the line, they get frustrated with the immigration situation, or let's say something changes in their job environment and they decide to move back to India. In that case, again, there'll be a lot of costs involved and a lot of time, energy to move all those funds back to India and then restart all over again in India. On the other hand, if you decide to continue towards a retirement path in the US, which is often the most preferred option for most people because those people came to US for a reason. And in that case also, there is always the question that how much do I keep in India just for the eventuality, or should I just move everything over here? And then the other portion is that, okay, all these retirement options that I have in the US and all the things I hear about from the media, whether to invest in 401k or to invest in real estate or to do something completely different, how do I plan my retirement planning in the US? Now, I'm not a retirement planning financial advisor. So definitely you should, if you have questions about, or if you want real clarity about your retirement planning numbers and so on, I would encourage you to talk to a CFP or somebody who specializes on retirement planning. What I teach in this channel is about the problems that I see talking to people and what could be a kind of a short-term solution, or in a way, the way to look at your finances according to your current situation, and then try to do the best that is applicable in your current situation. So that's what I do as a financial coach with new immigrants. And I have a 4-step guide that I have used in my own finances in the last 5 to 7 years that I'm in the US to literally start from this kind of financial uncertainty to create a financial system that gives me a lot of peace of mind, gives me a lot of feeling about financial abundance today. And with this 4-step process, I'm able to make certain choices that I would not have been able to make otherwise. So today, my financial choices, even though I have the same kind of dilemma, is very, very confident. I know exactly what I'm going to do, or if my situation changes, then I have a fallback plan. And all of these is built into that very flexible 4-step process. So if you'd like to know about this 4-step process, then you can go to the link in the description below, where you'll find a link to many other resources, but one of the top resources will be this 4-step guide. So let's get back to the topic about the US and India retirement. Now, let's assume that you want to go back after a few years, and maybe you are on a H1 visa or you are on an L1 visa, which may expire in 5 to 7 years. In that case, if you are very certain that you're going to go back to India, then it makes sense to treat your US finances as a very temporary thing. Now, when I talk about temporary thing, does not mean that you do not invest in 401k or you do not do any kind of long-term financial vehicles that are available to you. Because what happens if 5 years later, let's say, suddenly your green card situation becomes very favorable and you decide to flip the switch and decide to continue in the US? So one of the very simple things that you can do, again, this is not financial advice. This is something that I'm telling you based on what I started off with and what I see most of my clients are very comfortable in doing, is at least put some money in your 401k every month, because it's kind of a forced savings, number one. Second is you get a tax benefit upfront if it's a pre-tax 401k. And the third thing is that your employer often will match a portion of what you are contributing. Typically, it's like if you are contributing at least 6% of your gross income, your employer is going to put in 3% more. So that's kind of free money and a huge return on that investment that you are making. And because it is pre-tax, it will be even more money that will get in there. And if you invest it properly, then it is going to compound over time. Now, there is another subtle aspect to this, and this may be controversial, but actually the US is a much more mature market. So having some part of your money invested in like US stocks, or let's say just simply the S&P 500 large cap stocks, or the US total market, these kind of very simple, broad based, low cost ETFs will give you a good exposure to your international part of the portfolio. So assuming that you will be moving back to India and you'll keep most of your finances in India, this will actually give you that extra boost or that extra diversification that you can build it. So either way, I think this is not a bad decision and should turn out to be well for most people. Now, some people have this question that, okay, 5 to 7 years later or 10 years later, I move back to India. And now how do I access this money? So is it that this money is by law, this money is locked up till 59 and a half years of age? And of course, it's your money, you can get access to it, but you may have to pay a 10% penalty on what you are withdrawing. And also all the growth that has happened so far, you'll have to pay taxes on your ordinary income rates at that time when you are withdrawing it. Now, remember, there may be a lot of tax optimizations here that are possible, or tax situations. Again, a big disclaimer here, I'm not a tax consultant, but my view here is that if you are able to leave it till 59 and a half years, it is good. Anyway, you are going to pay taxes on that, because pre-tax 401k means at withdrawal, the IRS is going to tax it anyways. So whether you do it today or tomorrow, it depends on whether you want to give it more time to compound before you pay taxes on the growth. And if you are able to put your money into Roth 401k, which means you pay taxes today and you invest it, and then it grows completely tax-free. So at withdrawal, it can be tax-free. And that's a disadvantage if you move back to US, India, and you are pulling money out of the Roth 401k, then definitely US will not tax it, but India may tax it, because it still will be shown as your foreign income. Now, again, I won't go into all the tax details. These keep changing, and the tax treaty between the two countries can change. And here we are talking about a very long-term funds, which is your 401k or Roth 401k. So by that time, things may have changed. So don't take my take on, but these are the issues that you need to think about. That's all I'm trying to tell you here. And then contact the right professionals or do your own research to figure out how you should make a most optimal decision. So again, coming back to while you are moving back to India, if you have accumulated good amount of 401k plans, then you need to make a decision that, are you going to invest this in a better way in India, or do you really need this to let's say supercharge your retirement benefits in India? And in that case, maybe paying a 10% penalty is okay. Sometimes financial decisions are not so black and white, right? So you need to make sure that if you are paying a 10% penalty on the money that you are withdrawing, maybe you will earn much more when you reinvest that money in India. So that 10% will become smaller compared to what you are going to do with that. Again, it depends on your investment planning that you are doing while in India. But nevertheless, I would say that keeping it as an international diversification, capturing that extra employer contribution, and also relying on a portion of your portfolio to grow with the US stock market, all of these are good options and good reasons for doing this. So that is number one. The second thing is, if you are in the US and if you end up, let's say, retiring in the US, or you end up getting old in the US, then the US healthcare system is very, very expensive, and it is going more and more expensive. So one of the other good options which doubles up as your investment portfolio is a health savings account. Now, health savings account has a few criteria that you need to meet. First of all, you should be able to afford a high deductible healthcare plan, which means you should be relatively fit and do not need to visit the doctor or hospital several times a year. So that means you can afford a high deductible and hope that within the year you do not run into situations where you have to pay a lot of out of pocket. So if you are able to get into such a plan, then this health savings account offers a triple tax benefit. That means today you can save taxes by putting money into it up to, I think right now the limit is for families, it's about 7,500 or so, but it keeps changing every year. So look out the latest number when you are watching this video. And the good thing is that you can put money before taxes. And if you invest a part of that, then that money is going to compound over time, which means that even if you run into some healthcare expenses, you can afford it from your own pocket and do not disturb this money. You can just keep it there and invest it in the right way. And that way it will keep growing. And the beauty is that when you take it out after the age of 65, if you have the receipts that for your healthcare expenses or that time if you're using it for your healthcare expenses, or rather even before 65 if you're using it for your healthcare expenses, then there is no taxes on the money if it is used for qualified medical expenses. And again, look up the rules. There are a lot of things that may not fall into qualified medical expenses, or let's say if you move back to India, then certainly those medical expenses may not be covered by that. So again, just to trigger your thought or give you the points to consider here, there may be nuances that you need to talk to a proper financial professional who will be able to work this out for you. So it is really a kind of tax-free going in, tax-free growth. And then if you are using it for medical expenses, assuming that you stay back in the US, then you'll also get a tax-free withdrawal. So that's why I think it's a very good investment vehicle to at least dedicate towards your healthcare costs in the future. And healthcare definitely will be a large part of your retirement planning. So that was the second thing. Now let's assume that you want to move back to India in the next 7 to 10 years, and you are envisioning a good retirement in India. Of course, in India, things have improved a lot, and it is also changing towards the better. There are a lot of new opportunities. There's a lot of, I think, lifestyle improvements, and I would personally say that there are certain aspects of the Indian life where you can live a much more comfortable life at a fraction of the cost that you will incur in the US. So there are various good reasons for actually moving back after some time once your professional aspirations are done, or maybe you came to the US because of your children, and once they are settled and they go their own way. So there are a lot of these scenarios where people will consider this as a long-term financial plan. So if you are doing this, then one of the other things that you need to consider is that do you build up some part of your wealth in the US in a very flexible way? That is, when you move back, you will immediately have quite a bit of funds that you can take with you and just be able to relocate it. Or you may leave it, but there should not be any restrictions of accessing it like a 401k or Roth 401k where you'll have to pay taxes or you have to pay a penalty and things like that. And this is what I have done for myself, and this gave me a lot of flexibility, is to invest a part of my monthly savings into a taxable brokerage account. And what it does is, just like investing in mutual funds in India, I am kind of investing in mutual funds and ETFs and REITs in the US. First of all, when I look at my global portfolio, it gives me a much better diversification. It gives me a lot of options when I look at my entire global stock bond portfolio, a part of which is in Indian mutual funds, and then the rest are in 401k and these taxable brokerage accounts. So it really builds a lot of flexibility. And then as you go through different life stages, you can use that money in whatever way you like. For example, your kids need some college fund. You can just take out some portion of it and use that for that purpose. You suddenly depleted your emergency fund because you ran into some big emergencies, and now your emergency fund is, let's say, less than 3 months. What you can do is, if the markets are doing good at that time, you can book some profits, pay the capital gains taxes, and typically long-term capital gains taxes are much lesser than taxes that you will pay if you move money out of your 401k. So you pay capital gains taxes at a lower rate, 15 to 20%, and you move that money to your safe category if your emergency fund is depleted. Similarly, if you are moving back to India, you can again sell part of this, keep part of the portfolio here for diversification, move that to India and reinvest it in the Indian mutual funds or whatever you find appealing in India. If you want to buy a home, let's say in the next 5 to 7 years, you are just waiting for that green card or your immigration status to become more favorable, that you can take the jump of buying a home. In that case, because you have been steadily accumulating, you will see that now this can act as your down payment for the home. And because you are saving over like a longer time, 5 to 7 years, it didn't make sense to put that down payment money into a savings account, and especially when you are not even sure whether you are going to buy a home for the long term future in the US or not. So this taxable brokerage account can, as you can see, that it can actually act as a buffer for so many different things, as a very flexible fund that you can have for so many different aspects of your life. And for an immigrant's life, things are always changing. Your financial plans will always change every 3 to 5 years. So having this is absolutely, absolutely critical. So then finally, let's consider the situation that you have this fund, you have something in 401k, you have HSA. And the last but the least part, where I have seen people sometimes make a very rigid financial decision, or I should say sometimes they are not able to make that decision, is in buying a home. So a lot of times we believe that if I have to buy a home, I have to buy really a big home in which I'm going to stay forever. And that is not true. In the US also, there is a statistics that people change or upgrade their homes every 5 to 7 years. And if that is the case, then maybe your initial home, and given your immigration situation, your first home may be just a starter home, and you can plan it in a way that if you move back to India, you really have two options. You can sell it off, in which case it is good. If it's your primary home, then of course you can get the capital gains tax benefit, which is $250,000 for a single filer. You don't have to pay taxes on these capital gains. And if you're a family, it's even better. Then it's like $500,000 if you are filing as married jointly. Then all those up to $500,000 of capital gains will become tax-free. So it's a lot of money that you can take back to India. But there is a caveat here. Sometimes the markets may not be in a situation like it was last year and even now, where selling a home can be very difficult. Like the home just beside mine right now has been on the market for more than 6 months. They are basically lowering the prices, but still there are no takers. So selling a home at that point can be very difficult. And if you bought a very big home, which has a lot of cost to maintain, there's a huge property taxes on that, the insurance is high, and your mortgage is also very high, then you'll be in a very inflexible situation to maintain that home while you have to move back to India. So just keep this in mind. Even if you buy a home, it might be better to buy one in which you will enjoy living, but at the same time, if you are not able to sell it, then you can put it on rent. So it has to satisfy the rental property criteria. That means the rents in the region will be more than your mortgage plus property taxes, insurance, and some amount dedicated for maintenance and vacancy and so on. There's a whole gamut of things that you need to look at when you consider your home as a rental property in the future. So hope you like this video. This is the way you can plan flexibly, and it is a reality for most immigrants that you have to keep your plans very fluid, and so are financial plans. Financial plans also have to be very fluid. Again, if you want to learn about a very fluid 4-step process in which you can use this framework to make all of these decisions, then I have a guide you can download it from the link in the description below. And that is the framework that I have used and still use in my own finances to remain very, very flexible as an immigrant. So hope you like this video. Please click the like button below and subscribe to my channel. That way YouTube will show you more such immigrant finance videos. And I will also be able to reach more and more immigrants to share my knowledge, to share my experience in this field. Thank you very much.